There's only one thing that's running through my soul, and that is
Happy Hump Day. Welcome to the Crimson Dynasty. I'm your host, C'Chi, and of course, this is Crimson Dynasty. We're one of the shows here on the Bama Standard Network, and we're actually growing in shows as well. So be sure to go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any content. We're dropping videos throughout the week, so you don't want to miss anything. And also hit that like button as well. Before we get started, I have to shout out our two awesome co-hosts. We have Dan James IV and also JB. They're a part of other shows here on the network as well, so they'll mention those towards the end. We have a hot show tonight, of course. We always say that, but we do. But before we get started, I do want to shout out one of our sponsors, Lambstone Company. We always tell you that if you're looking for a natural stone to add in or around your home, don't settle for subpar materials. Check out Lambstone Company's selection of natural stone products to meet all your project needs. They're located in Oneonta, Alabama, and they're one of the oldest, most trusted sources in the state. So contact them today and let them know that we sent you by using promo code the Bama Standard to receive 10% off your first order. Now, if you're watching us right now on X, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel and then search the Bama Standard, and be sure to subscribe, because that'll be the only way that you can actually engage in the live chat. And we'll have a Q&A session towards the end, a live Q&A. So go ahead and drop your comments, those who are watching now. And let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I know that it's been a lot of talk as far as, just NFL drafts, certain guys who were drafted kind of when we expected them to be, but then there were others who went undrafted, and then some guys who essentially had transferred from Alabama. They went either as as undrafted or a free agent. And so we're going to talk about all of that, but I first want to get the initial reactions, because essentially from Alabama, we had 7 guys that were drafted, and essentially two that went as free agents, but then we also want to count Nealon Hibbett as well, the long snapper. He went to the Dolphins. So I want to get y'all's initial reactions as far as how do you feel about the draft, where the guys ended up. JB, I'll start with you on this one. How do you feel about just Alabama? You look at where Jahad Campbell ended up, Jalen Milroe, everyone, just in general. How do you feel that the draft went for Alabama?
I feel it went pretty well. We got 2 guys in the first round. That's always good. Mm-hmm. Kept the streak alive for first round picks every year. I think it's like 17. I don't know the number off the top, but we have the record for the most consecutive first round picks, with Tyler Booker going at pick number 12 to the Cowboys, and Jahad Campbell going to the Eagles at 31. So that was good. Mm-hmm. Jalen Milroe, I feel like it was a great spot for him, great opportunity for him, where he doesn't have to play right off. He can sit back, and develop behind a quarterback who's already going to be the starter, which is Sam Darnold at Seattle. Mm-hmm. So that's a good spot for him. And just all our guys, excited for all of our guys. They got drafted, even the CJ Dupree, who was signed as a free agent, and James Burner and Nealon Hibbett. So I like it. And Malachi Moore, I really like where he went to the Jets, 4th round. And I think he's at a really good spot right there with Coach Aaron Glenn, who played the position, and he was at the Detroit Lions. Coached up Brian Branch, which is close. He was close to Malachi Moore at Bama, and now he's the head coach of the Jets. So he likes Malachi's game, and he's going to be a great asset to the New York Jets defense, I believe.
I agree with you. I definitely agree. And then those who are watching, I see some already in the live chat, but be sure to drop your thoughts on where our guys ended up. And do you feel like it'll be a good fit, and why? And then any questions that you may have. Dan, I'll pose the same question for you. How do you feel in general where all our guys went? I know maybe the numbers or the round that they got drafted in, it may kind of, threw you off, but just what's your take so far?
Yeah, I must say I'm pretty excited about everywhere our guys landed. I think all of them landed in a good spot. Tyler Booker, Dallas. I was expecting Dallas to really mess it up. They got a history of messing up the draft. And he landed. Anytime you got a a guy of that caliber, you know, he's going to be a 10, 11 year, 12 year vet, you know, you go ahead and take him in the first round. He's going to be very serviceable, may even be a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame career, you know, great spot, you know, with him. Jahad Campbell, man, he may be in the best position, man.
He is.
Oh man, the Eagles continue to really blow away the draft. You know what I'm saying? They stockpiling talent. You know, they become the Alabama of the NFL, I guess. And you know, Jalen Milroe, you know, I know we're gonna talk more about him later. You know, great spot for him. He went to a pretty well established organization, a pretty well run organization. You know, that's what I like about it, because a lot of times, you know, like with Bryce with Carolina, I didn't think that was a good organization for him to go to, because, you know, they needed everything, you know, and you didn't know what they was building in Carolina when they drafted Bryce. Mm-hmm. You know, Milroe, he's going into an organization that doesn't need him to play right away, but I believe he will play right away just because of his athletic ability. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a super weapon. You know, a guy like that tend to find their way on the field. They're going to put him on the field in some kind of capacity. You can believe they're going to put some kind of package together for him. Malachi Moore at the Jets, you know, great fit, great opportunity for him to see the field early. And I was surprised, you know, Q-Rob, you know, I thought he would slide a little more, but, you know, going to Denver, you know, that's a great organization and a great opportunity for him. You know, they asked him to do what he does best, and that is rush the passer. You know, he can do it from off the edge, up the middle, you know. So, you know, I think that's a great fit for him as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, yeah. To piggyback on what you said about Milroe getting to play right away. So the OC is Clint Kubiak, who was previously with the New Orleans Saints, had a quarterback in Taysom Hill who had packages. Maybe he saw the vision with Milroe. We got some packages for you. So it's also a great fit. So I like that point you made.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would say Jahad Campbell, that was the one where I literally I was ecstatic because because it's funny because when they got maybe around 15 in round 1, spot 15, pick 15, and I was thinking to myself, to let someone like Jahad Campbell even get out of the top 10 was an issue for me. So I was, you know what I mean? I'm like, if y'all, they just either don't know what they're looking for, or maybe they don't believe he's the right fit. But as soon as he slid out of the top 10, top 15, I was thinking wherever he ends up going, that's going to be the perfect spot. And it had to be my Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Best team, hands down. And they were so strategic with, you know, how they picked guys. I think the first 5 rounds, they were all defensive guys. I'm gonna get into that a little later because I want to talk about one of the hot topics that everyone's been talking about Shedeur Sanders not being drafted, I believe, until the 5th round. If I'm right, the 5th round. Yep. And of course that was that didn't make any sense. I don't know how you could justify the 5th round, you know, but I know it was a lot of controversy. So I want to get y'all's takes on that. How do you feel? I'll start with you on this one first, Dan. How do you feel about where Shedeur, just this whole situation with Shedeur? Do you feel like potentially it could have been more of like a humbling situation? I mean, I'm hearing different things, and you know, people they're watching you on social media. They see what you're posting, what you're showing off, and what I'm hearing too. And I want to get your response on this. What I guess his interviews at the combine and how he responded to some of the questions. It sounds like that's really that was the nail in the coffin for him. So I want to know, what's your take on him landing in the 5th round?
Yeah, I don't think it was the NFL or teams trying to humble him. I really think it was just the fact that teams were afraid, you know, of the baggage that would come with it. You know what I'm saying? So, it could have been the interviews too, you know, because he's always played for his dad. So when you're talking to him, you know how Dion is. Dion talks. You know what I'm saying? So. You know, he probably answered the question the way his daddy would, you know, and that tends to, you know, kind of scare people, you know. But you know, you like that confidence, but then again, you know, the things that come with it, you know, you have the daddy situation, the daddy factor, you know, all the noise around it. And so, you know, I think that may have scared a few teams away, but no doubt his ability, you know, fifth round, you know, it's a safe pick for Cleveland. You know, he's still a great athlete, you know, good quarterback, you know. So I consider it as a steal in the fifth round, but yeah, I think teams just didn't want those problems, you know. So I think that was reason for the fall. Maybe besides, you know, maybe what was said in the interviews, and you know, so they get you down, they sit down, they go through playbooks, you know, verbiage and everything, and maybe, you know, that played a factor as well. But but I definitely don't think that it was just the league trying to humble him, because listen, man, that if that was the case, man, Cam Newton would have went in the fifth, sixth round, you know. So yeah, exactly. I don't think it's about the NFL trying to show him anything, you know.
Yeah, because and I say that because at least some of what I'm seeing online, it seems like people are kind of, you know, I guess taking it from that angle. And what are y'all takes in the chat? Let us know what you think about that, because
got a good point. I see. Yeah, they can't hold your hand anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll toss that question off to you, JB, as well. How do you feel about Shedeur ending up in the fifth round? Because, you know, one thing that it's almost like this back and forth argument that's going on social media, as far as like, you know, Shedeur, oh, you know, he's just being confident, oh, he's arrogant, he's this, he's that, and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't realize so many people just don't understand the difference between confidence and arrogance. Like I'm kind of like flabbergasted, but one person that I always tend, and yeah, I'm a big fan, but you know, he's been humble, he's been grounded, he's been confident, and he's a man of God. And so Jalen Hurts always tell people, you know, if you want to see an athlete who has stellar talent, stellar character, and confident and not arrogant, that's the guy. Go back and look at his, I think they still have it on YouTube, his combine, the interviews that he had, just all of that. I feel like he is that prototype that you want to see, the guy where when he was giving his answers, you know, during his interviews, it didn't come across as arrogance. You know, he's this humble guy, you know, you can tell that he was raised correctly. So I always tell people, go back and look at him if you want to be able to kind of see.
Yeah, coach's son.
Exactly. Coaches. Yeah. Exactly. Look at, you know, Bryce Young is a little different. His dad is, I believe, a therapist, psychologist. Right. So that's a different dynamic. But then you kind of think about, you know, the Jalen Hurts of the world and how the guys show up, you know, thinking about Shilo and that the bankruptcy and all of that. And the guy who's suing him literally saying, well, you can't say that you don't have money to pay the lawsuit because I've seen what you post on social media. So that in itself, you know, that's some of that arrogance. That's that cockiness, you know. But anyway, JB, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about Shedeur slipping to the fifth round? And do you buy into what people are saying on social media?
All right, so this is a loaded topic, right? About the Shedeur. It's still talked about, and it's been talked about all week. All right, so my take on this is that Shedeur and his dad, Coach Prime, they initially thought he was going first round, and if he didn't go first, he was going second. Now it was only 5 picks that told me if he didn't get past those 5 spots, it was going to be a downward spiral. That's number 3 to the Giants. Number 6 to the Raiders, and number 9 to the Saints. That was the first round. The Giants, they did something that was unexpected. They picked the best player in the dual Carter at 3. They traded back into the first round on the back half and picked Jackson Dart instead of Shedeur Sanders. Also, the Saints passed up on him with their first round picked the offensive lineman. With the second round pick, they picked Tyler Shuck. Out of Louisville, a 25-year-old quarterback who played 7 seasons of college football. So after that pick, it was a slap in the face. And another team that passed up on him with the first round pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. So right there, you looking at all those spots that Shedeur was linked to. They didn't want to go to the Browns. Coach Prime, a couple months before the draft, said if the Browns were to pick him, he said he's going to press the Giants. They didn't even want to go to the Browns. If you look at after the draft, they had the press conference after the draft. The GM Barry, they asked him the question. They had already picked Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. They asked him about picking Shedeur in the 5th round. They said, well, we came into this not expecting to pick 2 quarterbacks. You look at his face, it tells it's all over his face.
Yeah.
That came from up top. The owners told him to pick Shedeur Sanders at the 5th round. Now, I don't know if they did a favor for Deion, but a lot of those GMs had him completely off the draft board. And if you look at the quarterbacks that were drafted, there wasn't a lot of quarterbacks drafted high. Milroe went 3rd round. He was the 4th quarterback off the board in the 3rd round. So completely different drafts from 2024 when we have 6 first-round picks, 6 of the top 12 in 2024. It took you to the 5th round to get 6 quarterbacks this year. So totally different drafts, but also the big reason I believe that he slipped so much, of course, it's the interviews and the brashness, but it's Coach Prime.
I think so too.
He was only coached by his dad from little league, all through high school, college. His dad was his only head coach. So guess what? If I'm going to an NFL team with a head coach, I may not like what the coach is talking about. Coach Prime may get involved. They didn't want to deal with him. They didn't want to deal with Coach Prime. That's why he slid all the way to the 5th round. And the Browns just took it. Okay, we got 1 quarterback. Let's just go ahead and take him and let's have a competition. And if you listen to the draft call, they said you're going to come in here, you're going to work hard, you're going to do this. They didn't have to say that. All these guys know they got to come in and work hard.
Yeah.
But it's a little humbleness. They humbled him.
See, that's what I honestly feel that way. And I think what really did it too was just a couple weeks ago when Colorado had their spring game and Coach Prime retired their jerseys, Shedeur and Travis Hunter. And that was, kind of viewed a good way, almost like there's a time and a place type of thing. Like that wasn't the time to do it, essentially. Like do it during the fall, during a maybe homecoming or something like that, or an early game. But I know those are all really good valid points, and I agree wholeheartedly. Justin, I think you may have wanted to jump in.
Yeah, there was one thing I wanted to mention, and it hadn't really been talked about yet. And it could have very well played a tremendous role in his spiral, and that was the fact he have a fracture in his back not too long ago. He broke his back, and that's something. It is a major red flag for any NFL team, and it could cause people to back away very quickly. So I think that may have played a factor because that's a back issue. That's not something that you can just rehab and everything is good and back to the way it was. That could have lingering effects, and it could end up shortening your career and limiting your ability. So I think that should be in consideration when addressing this issue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And also, Justin, he didn't work out. He went to the combine. He didn't do anything. He did interviews. He didn't work out at all.
Right. So
he did work with the pro day.
Yeah. So what I want to figure out, so obviously someone had to give them the impression that they were going early, because you don't rent a private green room.
Yeah.
Without the expectation that you're going high, very high.
I mean,
so that's the puzzle. We may never find the answer to as to why, but where was the disconnect from their draft feedback to what actually happened?
And that level of disconnect.
Yeah,
they probably was listening to Mel Kiper all along because he had him going number 2.
True.
Mel Kiper had him going 2. So I mean, maybe they just, and you know how Deion is. He's real brash and cocky, and he can do that. He's the dad. He's paid his dues. But Shedeur can't do that. He can't do that. So whatever they were telling Deion, and also he did not have an agent. Coach Brown was acting as the agent. So the agent can't filter out the noise. Yeah. So whatever they was telling him, maybe it wasn't getting back to him. Maybe they said, all right, okay, well, somebody going to pick us. We got 4 or 5 teams. They need a quarterback. Somebody's going to get us. And then the downward spiral happened after they didn't go, I believe, in my opinion, after the Saints didn't pick them.
I agree, JB. If Dion was in fact his agent or acting agent, it goes back to what's already been said. Nobody wanted to deal with what he was already doing, the going on the talk shows, the podcast, and saying he's my son. He plays for who I want him to play for. Yes, Archie Manning did the same thing. I agree. I didn't necessarily agree with that either, but that does play into the minds of GMs and coaches, and especially right now. I think Damon Harris had mentioned in a interview after the fact that a lot of the players now coming out of college ran things in college. They controlled everything, and they're getting to the NFL with that same mentality, and they don't really understand that they have no control. It's the GMs, it's the coaches that have control. And maybe they're also using him as the example of like, hey, you're not going to do this, and you're going to be the poster child that proves our point. But I also go back to draft projections. How much of that was actual hype from the media, and how much was actual great feedback from the analysts and from the scouts and the GMs? What did they actually have him rated as? But we don't know that.
But doesn't that go to what Coach Saban was saying? He made some comments basically talking about expectations, right? And you kind of had to read between the lines. But I kind of took that to mean, what y'all are saying right now is just who set those expectations that even the second round, because that's a huge, I could see if he would have gone in the third round potentially, but that is a huge drop. So it does make you kind of question who set those expectations. And then, like y'all said, it's hard to filter through that noise. We literally just talked about this last week when we were talking about Nico and about, one of his reps being his dad. And we literally, and that kind of, it actually segues us into our next item that we wanted to discuss, because that's something else that came up, is the fact that, technically Coach Prime was representing Shedeur and Shilo, and from what I was reading, Shilo technically fired him, right? And he hired a legit agent, So let's kind of talk about that. How do y'all feel? You kind of touched on it, but I want to get your takes. I'll start with you, JB. How do you feel about that? Like after the draft, after everything that went down, Shilo fired Coach Prime. What do you think that private conversation was? And do you feel like this is just kind of like that little dynamic that we kind of see during the season, where it's not like any love loss per se, but it's like, look, Dad, like you kind of messed this one up?
Well, I gotta give Shilo his props, because he was hilarious all weekend long.
He was.
He took. I know it was a disappointing moment for the family, but he was keeping the level head, because he knew it was at one point when Shedeur was sliding, he was right there on the stream next to him and said, "Man, they doing this to you. What you think they gonna do to me? I'm not gonna get my name." So he even told his dad. He said, "Dad, I gotta get me a real agent. You ain't doing right." So we thought it was a joke until Drew Rosenhaus, he put the graphic up and said, "Congratulations, Shedeur Sanders, my new client," and he wound up signing with the Buccaneers right after the draft as a free agent. So he's got his opportunity. Shilo. So yes, he got his opportunity, right? So let's see what he does with it. And he didn't have a good pre-draft process as well. He didn't run well at pro day, and everybody was talking about his bad tape he has, but he's got an opportunity now. And Drew Rosenhaus is one of the most well-known, prestigious agents out there. He's been doing it for years and years. So of course you call Drew, he's gonna get you on the team. It's all about what you do with it. But I thought it was hilarious the way Shilo did that. But sometimes you gotta let Dad's hand go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. He didn't do well in the East-West Shrine game practices either. So.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Dan, I'm gonna and that was a good take, JB. I'm gonna toss the question to you as well. How do you feel as far as we know Shilo is funny and he just has that very likable personality, but I do think that there was something behind the message that he's sending, and I feel like this kind of ties into what we talked about last week, because we said that Nico, he may have to have some hard conversations having his dad, be one of his reps. And so do you feel like this could be a a moment where maybe even Nico and Madden, and we'll get into Madden later if we have time, where they could actually look at this as an example, like, dang, like, considering what we dealing with in college, and this is what they dealing with as Coach Prime's son. You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to imagine how that conversation went. Dad, it's not working out. But in reality, only 20-30% of guys get to the second NFL contract. So he's saying this first NFL contract. They doing it like this on the front end. We got to do something different. So I think this was just Shilo getting ahead of things. Because you're not gonna, I don't know, you're not gonna bank on trying to, make the team and have the baggage associated with you. So it's time for them to make names for themselves. So it was a tough decision. I commend them for, being able to make the tough decision about his future. You're not in daddy's spotlight anymore. You're on your own. These guys in the NFL, they don't care. They don't care who your dad was. So there's a lot of guys in the league whose dad was great in the league. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in Colorado, you're big, but in the NFL, you're nobody. So
Yeah.
So this is just a humbling point for the family, but maybe they can learn from it, going forward. But yeah, it was I think it was a wise decision, but I mean his agent ain't cheap. So we'll see. We'll see if he get that second contract, then it'd be worth it.
Yeah,
that's true. You were gonna say
I thought of a good point. So if you guys remember when Marvin Harrison Jr. was going through this process where he got drafted, he went, I think, number 4 to the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And his dad was an all-time great Marvin Harrison, one of the top 5 receivers ever.
Yeah.
So you looking at that, him trying to live up to that, his last name's Junior, and he played very well at Ohio State. So he gets drafted top 5. He was going to hold out. It was at a point where he was about to hold out on his first rookie contract when he got signed, all the way up until damn preseason, I believe. But since then, he's been really quiet. He hasn't been a model. Nothing. I hadn't heard anything from Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't even know how he talks. So he's been really quiet, playing the background, after whatever he had to go through when he first got drafted. But you're looking at that too. I mean, Deion Sanders is an all-time great player. And he's got his 2 sons. Marvin Harrison was an all-time great, and his son is a great player. So just like Dan said, to make his point, it's a lot of players in the league that their dad was great in the NFL as well.
Exactly. And this really, and before I move on to the next question that I have for y'all, it really prompts a bigger, not really, well, I'll say a bigger subject matter is knowing the place that people should have in your corner from an advisory perspective, right? Like people, they should have a different role. I feel like someone like Coach Prime, he would have been great, in the backgrounds, guiding them and things like that. But you have to have people who have worked in that. Coach Prime, he was an athlete, right? He played on the field and he was one of the best to ever do it. But you need to have one of the best agents to represent you and get and let you know, even before the draft, the process in and of itself. Maybe they would have told Shedeur, hey, don't just show up at the combine and just do the interviews, you know what I mean? Like, or they could have guided him a little bit more on how he conducted himself in the interview. It's just there, and we talked about this a little bit last week as well, just that wisdom side of things. I think that has to play a role into it. And of course, Shedeur doesn't know everything, but that's why it's so important to have wise counsel. And I'm gonna tell y'all again, read the book of Proverbs. I literally listen to it every single week because it's something new. And when you really listen to it, you're like, dang, man, like I wish I would have been doing this, like, even when I was in high school. Like, you just learn so much. But Dan, what you got? Because I can tell you got something you want to say.
Yeah, because you remember his dad didn't go to the combine. He showed up at the combine.
Showed up.
He just ran the 40 and walked off. You know what I'm saying? So, it worked for him. You know what I'm saying? But Shilo and Shedeur, they're not Deion Sanders. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if was it the dad's idea for them not to, perform in the combine, but hey, Deion can do things you can't do what your daddy did. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to make that
That's a good point. That's a good point. They think he passed down that level of greatness that he had. He played in a different era. He was still awesome, but he played in a different era. The expectations, like you said, JB, earlier, even when you're looking at all the quarterbacks and just kind of how in the past you see, multiple quarterbacks in that first and second round. And then even look at, I believe, Quinn Ewers, he went, what, sixth, seventh round?
Seventh, I believe, to the Dolphins.
Yeah. Right. And I know that he had gotten injured at one point as well, but it wasn't that he was horrible and he played, for Texas. So it's the times are different. And hopefully this is something for the guys to, that's going to enter the draft this or next year, really, to think about. It's like having the wise counsel around you. And hopefully for Nico, he needs to be able to develop more and he needs to have the right people around him so that when he does go to the draft, he will, even at UCLA, he needs to live up to that hype when he was one of the top 3 quarterbacks out of high school in California. So we need to see some growth. And I think these guys really need to make sure they have the right people around them. Jalen Hurts, he lucked out with that because I believe that his dad and also Bryce Young dad, they have those solid figures who are, wise counsel in their ears, probably Jalen Milroe as well. But that's not the case for everyone, right? So you have to use discernment to know who should be around you, especially depending on the season that you're in. So let's pivot a little bit because we're talking about quarterbacks. I want to touch on Jalen Milroe. And so, he went in the 3rd round. We saw him doing his little dancing and all of that. He was excited. He's going to Seattle. And I thought it was interesting because, Ryan Grubb, he's coming to Alabama, and that could have worked out for him if Grubb was still at Seattle when Jalen got there, but he won't be. Of course, he'll be at Alabama, and we're so glad to have him because I think we need him. But I want to get y'all's takes on Milroe going to Seattle because leading up to the draft, all the discussion was about possibly the Steelers, right? You didn't really hear a whole lot of teams being mentioned. I don't recall hearing about Seattle being in the mix. So JB, what are your thoughts? Did you hear that Seattle, maybe was a team who was looking at Jalen, and how do you feel about what are your expectations for him in this upcoming season for him?
Yeah, so the Seahawks was a dark horse. They were one of the teams that met with him the week before the draft. They met with him, I think, that Thursday before the draft, so a couple weeks ago, and they met with him, and I think it was him, Dart, and one other quarterback. I can't remember who it was, but they needed a quarterback, and I guess he blew him away in the meeting. I also heard some things about the Giants. I thought the Giants would probably take him, but when they took Dart in the 1st round, I knew that was done. And you also would have thought maybe Cleveland because Tommy Reese, right? So the relationship with Tommy Reese there, and they were at the Senior Bowl. I was at Senior Bowl, and when you mentioned Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin was shoulder to shoulder with Milroe. Every chance you can get on the field, he was right there. Milroe goes to his drill. He walks to the side. Tomlin's right there at his hip. So I really thought that was a match made in heaven. They had a 1st round pick. They chose not to pick a quarterback. Steelers did not have a 2nd round. So 3rd round, they still didn't pick a quarterback. So I was like, wow. But Milroe goes to the Seahawks, the dark horse team. I guess he blew him away in the interview. And I'm going to tell you something about Jalen Milroe. I read that he was telling in the interviews, he was telling the teams his flaws that he was working on. They wasn't telling him they wasn't giving Jalen Milroe his flaws. Yeah. Jalen Milroe was giving the teams his flaws. You know what I'm saying? It was like he was telling, hey, I know I got to do better this. I'm working on this. That was awesome.
Yeah,
for him to be brutally honest with those guys, knowing that I'm not ready to play week 1, I need to work on some things. Hey, and then he kills the meetings. So he's going to be a great fit, a great ambassador for the NFL. You can already tell. And I like what he said on I think the little audio when they asked him the questions after he got drafted, and they said, what does he think about the teams that all the teams that picked, didn't pick him? He said, belt the ass. And drop the mic. I love it.
I know you do because you always say that. Just 3 words, right? I mean, it really ain't nothing else. And like you said, for him to, it takes a lot of humility, right? And also self-awareness to be able to sit down, even look at it like a job interview, like you sitting right there in front of your potential employer and you're telling them, because, sometimes they would ask you, what do you think your weaknesses are? What do you think your strengths are? And a lot of people have a hard time saying what they believe their weaknesses, and they believe that it's going to be used against you, but it's actually not. It's actually not. And so I think for him to go in there and to say that, and that just goes, towards the people who kind of felt like, they almost felt like he did nothing wrong. Everything was perfect. And it's like, it's okay to say what someone needs to work on so they can get better. And the fact that he acknowledged that, he don't have a ceiling. I mean, he doesn't have a ceiling. But yeah, I agree with you. Dan, what are your thoughts? How do you feel as far as Milroe ending up at the Seahawks? I believe they still have Scott Huff out there as their online coach, the one from Washington. We kind of wish we could have got him, but we still have Coach Pat. But yeah. So how do you feel about Milroe going to the Seahawks? And what do you feel about the Steelers not taking that chance on him?
Yeah, my Steelers, I can't say I was really upset because we did address a need, along the defensive line. But, I was kind of surprised. But, once again, it's about Jalen Milroe and the fit for him. He went to a great organization. I think he went into a situation that's going to be beneficial for him. He went to a team that doesn't need him to come and carry the team right away. You know what I'm saying? So, and having support system around him, not just talking about his family or whatever, but the Bama family, him and Jalen Hurts, they talk on a regular basis. Bryce Young, that's a benefit of going to Alabama, so you can see a lot of Jalen Hurts in Milroe, came in and wasn't a polished passer, but you get with the right, OC, you work on your craft, continue to work on your craft. And the NFL, Jalen Hurts proved last year that, you can win big. Guy that's not as polished as a passer. You can win with a running quarterback. As much as Milroe wanted to say, well, I'm not a running quarterback. I'm just a quarterback who can run. But you're a running quarterback. That's
quarterback.
Yeah, that's fine.
Exactly.
Just accept that now. You don't have to try to prove to anybody other than, be who you are, because it's proven that it can work, so be who you are, be yourself, be great at what you do.
Exactly. I mean, that in itself, and that's for everybody, you don't have to prove and be something that you're not, hone in on your strengths. I mean, and that's a whole different conversation, but let's kind of pivot a little bit. I want to talk about, we had a few guys that left Alabama over the last couple years and what's interesting is that the majority of them were wide receivers, and they all went undrafted now. Okay, so you have Trayshawn Holden. He was not drafted, but he was picked up as a free agent, I believe, to the Cowboys. I believe the Cowboys. Okay. But then you also had Ja'Cory Brooks, who wasn't drafted. I'm not sure if he got picked up. You had Isaiah Bond. Wasn't drafted, right? And of course, there's a bigger ordeal that's happening with him. But then you also had Seth McLaughlin. I always want to call him Seth MacFarlane. Think about Family Guy. But you had Seth McLaughlin, and I don't think too many people, still really talk about him as much because a lot of Bama fans wanted him to leave, Alabama. But I just want to get y'all's takes because as I was thinking about this, I was like, you know what? There's more underneath this, because when you think about the conversation that Coach DeBoer had with the team right before spring portal open, where he basically told them the grass is not always greener, right? And we didn't have any guys enter the transfer portal. And then you see the clip that's coming back to haunt Isaiah Bond, where he was basically saying he was transferring to Texas because he wanted to go to a place where it would basically improve his draft stock. Well, did that really happen? I want to get y'all's takes on this. And Dan, I'll start with you. So you have Trayshawn Holden goes undrafted. I truly believe because he actually had a bigger role at Oregon this year, and he did pretty well. And I think the thing that really got him was, when he spit in that guy's face when they played Ohio State. I think that was something and I think based on his reaction, he could tell that was going to be something that was going to really cost him. And so I do believe that may have been, one of the, because someone like him, I mean, yeah, you draft him, even if it's not until the 5th round. And so, okay, so Seth went to Cincinnati. Okay, so he did get picked up as a free agent. But I want to get y'all's takes on this, particularly with the wide receivers, because we had other guys, right? Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, Emmanuel Henderson Jr., the list goes on. What do you think that this says when you look at, certain guys who left? Ja'Cory Brooks, he did pretty well, at Louisville. Isaiah Bond, he did all right at Texas. Of course, Isaiah Bond, his is a bigger issue with the sexual assault case. But I'll start with you, Dan. Do you feel like all of this kind of ties into what Coach DeBoer stated to the team before the portal opened? The grass is not always greener. Do you feel like that could be a part of it?
Oh, without a doubt. Bama had a process, getting to the league. It was, Coach Saban made it something bigger than even he could be. You know what I'm saying? So he had a lot of support systems in place. Getting prepared for the draft, becoming a better person. But let me say, I'm not gonna knock Seth McLaughlin. You know what I'm saying? Because I think he made a move that he felt was best for him. Yeah. Ja'Cory Brooks, he made a move that I thought was good for him. If you want to go and perform, but I think he could have stayed at Bama and got drafted. Just by he didn't have to be as productive, but he still could have. Got drafted by staying at Bama. So, he wanted to be more involved in the offense and whatnot, but, more playing time, he got that. But how did that work out? So the thing is, Coach Saban implemented trust the process, and so that's the message that, I want to get out to the young guys, just trust the process. The University of Alabama is much more about becoming a man and trusting the process, development, mentally, physically. So if things like they say, I'm not gonna knock you. If you got a mama that's sick at home, got medical bills to pay. I ain't gonna knock you going to get the NIL money, but we're gonna try to make sure you gain good financial wealth. In the long term, that short money ain't always good, so
especially if you don't know what to do with it. I mean,
right. So Bond, hey, he had a nice ride to take to the draft. So
the Lamborghini,
yeah.
Which one did they say he had?
The Lambo. I don't know.
The Lambo, which model? Anyway, no, I agree with you. I did, and I see that Ja'Cory Brooks, he signed with. Okay, so he went as a free agent to the Commanders, and then Seth McLaughlin to Cincinnati. Okay. Well, good for them. I mean, like you said, Ja'Cory Brooks, he probably would have had a better chance of getting drafted had he stayed, because he had a lot of potential. He had some big plays at Alabama. We just, yeah. So, and we didn't have the best offensive coordinators at that time either. But JB, what are your thoughts, man? Like, I mean, you see what's going on with Isaiah Bond. It's my understanding that he, and not only is he not drafted, he's still undrafted, hasn't been picked up as a free agent. But I remember right before the draft, his attorneys, and I believe, or maybe his agent, they sent a letter to all of the teams, basically saying, hey, this is what's going on right now as far as the case. Of course, it recently happened, so they don't know for sure what's what. And so, with them trying to set that precedent up front, and they already kind of knew, like, okay, there's a chance he may not get drafted. How do you feel about this with the guys that left Alabama, particularly you look at it from a wide receiver perspective? And I'll kind of hone in more on Isaiah Bond and Ja'Cory Brooks, although he's been picked up. What do you think? Do you feel like this kind of echoes what Coach DeBoer said to the guys before the portal opened?
Yeah, you could say that as well, but we know guys leave for different reasons, and it happens every year. We've seen it's the new normal. Guys leave, and some of them go and be successful at other schools, and most of them don't. So, I mean, sometimes you just have to pick the right spot. But on the Isaiah Bond thing, knowing that they sent out something to all the GMs or whatever, maybe that flag was a little bit too red. Maybe it was a little bit too
like
red.
This dress.
Yes. So some red flags, you can get by. Maybe it's a first round talent. He goes in the second, third round because of red flags and injuries too. So he was banged up as well. So you mix injuries with red flags, and if it's something like a sexual assault or whatever it is, man, you don't really want to touch that. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, he has the talent. He's a talented kid. You know, I don't wish nothing bad on him for leaving Bama because he did okay at Texas. But it also will make you think, man, I should have went back to Texas. Same thing with Quinn Ewers. Man, I should have went back to school. Even if they was trying to kick me out of Texas, I could have went somewhere else and got the big money. He went 7th round. He didn't get no money. So if you're looking at that as well, some of these kids are going to look at it. Man, I need to go back to school. Like Carson Beck made the right decision.
He did.
There was no way he was going. He wasn't going. He would probably win 7th round as well.
He wasn't going higher than the 7th round in this draft.
That's what I'm saying. So he made the right decision to go get that bread from Miami. You know what I'm saying? But let's jump back on the wide receivers. So I linked Ja'Cory Brooks and Trayshawn Holden to Javon Baker. Y'all remember Javon Baker, right? That was at Bama.
Yeah.
Y'all remember Javon? So Javon Baker transferred to UCF with Gus. And I'm saying this because I saw him at the Senior Bowl.
Did he transfer to Kentucky first, or he ended up at Kentucky? Which one was it?
You know, UCF. Okay. Yes, he went to UCF. I think he played 2 years at UCF. But long story short, I met his dad 2 years ago at Senior Bowl. Javon Baker was there. He wound up getting drafted 3rd round to the New England Patriots. So he was a success story for the guys that left Alabama. He was way more productive at UCF. He was 1,000-yard receiver over there. Where at Bama, he really couldn't see the field because injuries, because guys like Devontae Smith and guys, you know, we had elite talent. So he chose the right decision to go to another school, be very productive.
His dad made that decision for him. He didn't want to leave, but his dad made that decision.
Yes, that's true. So, but yeah, that was a success story. You go 3rd round, he's on the New England Patriots roster, making some pretty good money. But for guys like Trayshawn Holden and Ja'Cory Brooks, who was at Bama not last year, a few years ago, who went to other schools, Trayshawn Holden was productive at Oregon. He played with Bo Nix. He was at Oregon for 2 years.
He did good. He did really good.
Yeah, he did. Ja'Cory Brooks was great at Louisville. So saying all that to say the guys didn't get drafted, man, this wide receiver class was loaded. Not so much on the front end, but like in the middle of the draft, it was loaded with talent.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of that at Senior Bowl. Most of every guy that was at Senior Bowl got drafted from the wide receiver position, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, sometimes guys just don't pop off, but I'm not gonna say every Alabama guy that leaves don't pop. I mean, we have our cases where some guys do pop off, and in Seth McLaughlin's case, he was injured. And he didn't even play in the national championship because he was hurt. He had a season-ending injury, so that's probably the reason he didn't go. Because he won the award for best. Didn't he win an award? Or was he? Yes. So he was great. An award. Yeah. He was great last season, but that injury happened at the end of the season, and I mean, he's on the Cincinnati Bengals, undrafted free agent. Maybe he can rehab. Maybe he can, work his way up. But, I don't have no ill will to none of the guys. Some guys leave for different reasons, like Dan said, but it's hard to get drafted. They only pick 274, I think, get drafted.
Go look at how many undrafted guys are there.
Probably over 1,000.
Man.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State is the only SEC school that didn't have any guys drafted, and I think they only had like 2 that entered the draft. So, they're the only SEC school that didn't have any guys drafted.
I'll just edged them out.
they had a player drafted. It was late rounds. I can't remember his name, but they did have a player.
Okay. Who are you talking about? Auburn, late round.
Mississippi State.
Auburn will be late round.
Auburn had a 4th round in a while.
I know, and they'd be loud as hell.
Why we haven't heard the word raggedy in a while?
They know what they are. They know at the end of the day got to end, and their day is going to end. Now, before it was one more thing that I wanted to touch on regarding Iamaleava brothers But before I do that, I have to shout out our other sponsor, WhitwillSports.com. We always tell you that your game day is not the same without a title towel. So be sure to visit WhitwillSports.com and use promo code STANDARD for an exclusive discount. So and I'm going to touch on this very quickly. I know we mentioned Nico last week, but I wanted to talk about his brother Madden. So it was recently mentioned that Arkansas's athletic director, of course, he was the one that pushed the Arkansas NIL collective to go after Madden. So apparently in these NIL deals, there are buyout clauses. And from what they're saying, typically, it's kind of overlooked when guys hit the portal. They haven't really been enforcing it. And so Arkansas spring game ended up being canceled due to severe weather. And then about 2 days later, that's when Madden announced that he was going to enter the portal. So his NIL deal, it was about $500,000 for 1 year. And he had only received about $100,000 of that deal. And the clause that was in his contract basically said that if he left the school before the end of the 1 year, he would have to pay back 50% of the amount of funds that were remaining. So he had $400,000 remaining. He would have to pay back $200,000. Now, I don't think that's necessarily fair because he only got $100,000, but I do agree that, maybe if they leave before that, the term of the contract, then maybe all of it has to be paid back of what they received and not, anything additional. Now, what's interesting is that the Arkansas NIL collective, they just hired, he's probably one of the more prominent sports attorneys in the nation, Mars, and basically, I think Tom Mars, and it happens to be the same attorney that represented the Tennessee, like the whole Tennessee and NIL collective violations, all the stuff that was going on with Nico in 2024. So it's the same attorney, but he's supposed to be representing the Arkansas NIL collective. And it sounds like it's unfortunate because it sounds like both brothers are basically going to be guinea pigs for college football to kind of see what not to do in terms of, how you're moving about. And they're going to really start enforcing, these buyout clauses. And I think what's going to be very interesting, the statutes of limitation, that's going to be interesting because it could turn, I think it may turn into a situation where even guys who had already transferred, they're going to go back and look at those contracts because depending on the amount of time from the time they signed the contract to the time they transferred, they may still be held liable for some money that they received, but they didn't fulfill their clause, their buyout clause in the term of the contract. So,
The new student loan.
No, you're right. Yeah. They just finding a different way to go about it. Yeah. So I want to get y'all's takes really quickly. I know we had a few questions, but Dan, I'll start with you. How do you feel, man? Like this is just so interesting that it's not even the Arkansas NIL collective that initiated going after Madden. It's the Arkansas athletic director. He prompted the collective. He's like, no, because he's only been there a few months at Arkansas. I hadn't even seen the field. How do you feel like? Do you feel like this is kind of setting the precedent across college football? Do you feel like it's fair?
Well, it is. It's just the organizations, the athletic department is pushing back, so it goes both ways. NIL goes both ways, so that money is money, so the schools now they have to protect themselves as well. That's why they're contracts, so when you don't fulfill it goes both ways, so you have to have clause in the contract to protect yourself. So both sides. And that for that very reason, for a guy to just up and say, okay, I'm out of this, I'm leaving. So, that's life. That's how it happens. So, maybe they'll learn from it.
I agree. Like you said,
they'll be paying along the way. That's expensive less.
They will. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is because apparently this has been going on and it hasn't, you hear the athletes talking about not getting their money or different things. But like you said, it should protect both ends. And it's all about limiting or at least mitigating the risk. Right. And so that's not fair because now Arkansas they already weren't having that good of, the last couple of years as far as their seasons. And so then they had to rush and try to find another quarterback out the portal, figuring out what they're going to do. So yeah, I get, from their end as well. But JB, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like with the spotlight already being on Nico and then with Madden, leaving and going to UCLA, and then from what I saw, one of the quarterbacks that just left UCLA just got picked up by Tennessee. Do you feel like all of this is kind of putting more light on what's really been going on behind the scenes, that a lot of the collectives were a little scared to touch, and now they're like, no, like y'all are coming after us for money, so we're going to fulfill the contract in its entirety? How do you feel?
Well, I'm glad the Arkansas athletic director doing this. I'm glad, go after him. And like Elfron said in the chat, they coming after him like the IRS. They trying to get that bread back real quickly. They not gonna wait. So what I suggest they do, I suggest he go to big bro Nico. Hey bro, let me get that 100, 200,000, pay these folks back, get them off my back. Because that's what you gotta do. Little brother got to help the big brother. You got the bag at UCLA. I'm coming with you. Let me borrow a little bit of money to pay these folks back to get them off my back. That's what you got to do as family. And that's going to actually, this right here is going to actually, they're going to be guinea pigs for another situation that happens when it's a dad or that's acting as an agent and you got brothers or whatever it is. And they're going to be the guinea pigs for this situation. Now, until they get some actual contracts and actual rules and regulations, we may see more situations similar to this. But until the athletic program start fighting back, trying to get some of this money back when you transfer and you don't even see the field, you don't meet no obligations of what we said we were going to pay you when you attend our school and play for our team, then they're going to come get their money. But until then, it's going to be a lot of back and forth. It's going to have whatever agencies involved, they're going to be eating the money because it's going to go through litigation.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the part that I feel like, I know I always say that the NCAA failed on this, but I feel like the schools they did as well, because you have a bunch of athletes who most of them didn't come from a lot of money. Their parents didn't have a lot of money, right? But they're going up against collectives. These NIL collectives, these are legal entities. These are mostly LLCs, right? So they already have their liability protected. They're protected on their end. And typically with those contracts, they have attorneys that review it and protect them on their end, but it always makes me wonder who's protecting the athletes, right? Who has an attorney in the room? Because just because they throw out a number, you don't just sign it Bryce Underwood. Just because they throw out a number and say, okay, we're going to pay you over 10 million over the course of X amount of years. You don't just sign it. You got to know what you're signing. You know what I mean? And so hopefully that'll be an eye opener for them, because I think other schools are going to kind of go after other guys, kind of like back paid to some degree, because those, like I said, the statutes of limitations, and they have to understand what that is, because it differs. One state may have a certain, what amount of years, another may have another. So, but anywho, okay, let's move on. Huh?
These schools about to start going belt the ass on these kids when they ain't paying their money. They going belt the ass. They want their money back.
They doing what, JB?
Belt to ass. They want their money. They gonna get it somehow, some way.
They're like, you gonna run me that check?
Yeah.
Like if I ain't getting paid, ain't nobody getting paid.
Man, we got to do BTA.
Yeah. Bro, you need to get like just go ahead and brand it. You need to trademark. Go ahead and see if they got a trademark out on that already, and go ahead and get that.
I might need to.
You should, for real. Like you really should.
Actually, JB, The Rock already has rights to that.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. I thought it was boot the ass.
Oh, that's right.
The Rock boots the ass. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So you have something there. You might want to apply for trademark there.
I'm gonna do that right after this show.
If you need help, let me know. All right. Look, all that stuff. Like, let me tell y'all something. We just about to have us a little moment. Y'all don't go signing stuff. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Don't go signing stuff. Know what you signing. These young guys, like I understand that, the contracts sound good, whatever they're being promised, but those small clauses, and it's normally not at the top of the contract and it ain't at the end. It's normally embedded and it's sandwiched within the middle of it. Always have somebody review it, an actual attorney, some type of legal representative. Even if you trust your parents, you see what's happening with, if Nico's parents, if his dad was representing him and his agent, they would have known about that clause. So, I mean, that's beyond me. But anywho, okay, let's get into the questions that we have, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Let's see. I know I saw a few come across the screen. So let's see what we have. All right, shout out to Herb. I think having Darnold and Locke will really help Milroe. I think so too.
Yes.
And like y'all said earlier, it takes the pressure off of him to not feel like he has to, jump right in. But what do y'all think?
Yeah. So I got a very ironic thing about what happened. I forgot to mention it earlier. The Seahawks, same organization that drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round in 2012. They had signed a free agent quarterback in Matt Flynn in that offseason. Same way the Seahawks signed Sam Darnold, big money contract. Guess who won the job? Russell Wilson. Not saying Milroe's going to go win the job because Sam Darnold had a great season last year. He's going to play as long as he's healthy. But the competition is going to be between Drew Lock and Jalen Milroe because Drew Lock was drafted pretty high about 4 years ago. He hasn't proved anything. So there we go. We got a competition right there for QB2. I like it.
Yeah.
But the thing about that, why I say Locke may be the odd man out, because he doesn't bring the dynamic to the offense that Milroe does. So, so it really, Milroe is probably shoe in for quarterback too. Kind of situation when with Taysom Hill in with the Saints, he was quarterback number 2 just because of what he could do. So, anytime you got a weapon like that, because he's a weapon with the ball in his hand. So they're going to find a way to get him on the field, and they're going to have packages designed for him. So the offense will be simplified more with Milroe and for Milroe. But so, I think Locke would be the odd man out in that situation.
Yeah, he would be. And Milroe knows how to win a locker room too. So he definitely has that advantage as well. Good question, or good take. Cam Newton seems very arrogant, but he also had a stellar season and won a title. I mean, look, y'all, I don't know, like those who may have joined late, I'm going to say it again. And if y'all don't like what I have to say, that's fine, but you watching. I always say, if you want to see just kind of like that, what confidence, true confidence looks like in comparison to arrogance, look at Jalen Hurts. That's that. I mean, I honestly, I look at all these other guys, and when you really want to see someone who is based on the principles of humility, but also has that stewardship mindset, because that's huge. Because to whom much is given, much is required, and he's someone who knows that. He knew when he went into that locker room with Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson, he already knew what was required of him. You know what I mean? But he kept that confidence and that humility, and that's why it's going to take him further than he already is. And so I feel like with guys like Cam Newton and these guys who feel like they have to use, it's almost like to me, it's overcompensation when you feel like you have to be arrogant like that, because even if you're good at what you do, that should be enough. You know what I'm saying? That in itself should be enough. So to me, that reeks of insecurity, and it's really, I don't personally like that. To me, that makes me not want to get behind them and what they support. But someone like Jalen Hurts, 100%. How y'all feel?
Good point.
Cam, so let me say this about Cam. He's the pot calling the kettle. Of all people to call somebody arrogant, because he called out Shedeur. He had made a video calling out Shedeur for being too arrogant. Of all people, bro, you the most arrogant quarterback I've ever seen.
I haven't seen one more arrogant than him.
Or the NFL,
with
so
his
to call out
all
another
over
man,
the place.
call out another man on his arrogance, I just think that was very tongue-in-cheek. But yes, Cam Newton did win the national championship. He was, successful, number 1 overall pick. And I think him and Shedeur had some words last year. I don't know how friendly they are to each other. So he took a shot.
Need more words.
He took a shot. But out of anybody taking shots at Shedeur, Cam, come on, bro. About arrogance?
Hey, that's that situation. Right message, wrong messenger.
Yes, you wear a cologne called arrogance.
No.
Shouts out to Mono Rick Martel. That's an old WWE reference right there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well,
I remember Rick Martel here at AWA.
Oh, you old school.
Old school.
Any thoughts, Dan, about the whole Cam Newton and?
No, because he's just raggedy. Because when we play, we're gonna mollywop him.
But you know what? I honestly think that arrogance came from when he brought his dusty behind, his raggedy behind up in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Thought he was doing something. Was that 2010?
2010, yeah.
I mean, and I feel like that's and it's just like, Cam, have a seat. Like, I mean, you good at what you do, but you ain't playing Alabama. I mean, you raggedy. I don't know. Right message, wrong messenger. So
Yeah.
All right.
Bowl too.
Hmm?
He quit on his team in the Super Bowl too.
I know, just all right. See, I don't know if I want to shout this person out because I know he was running his mouth about a week or two ago. This Tennessee fan. I don't like it, but I think Archie's probably going to be okay. Okay, so you kind of all right. Well, we'll cut you some. We'll give you some grace. You think Arch is probably going to be the best quarterback in college football this year? He probably will be.
Candidate. Yeah, he's a candidate.
He sure is. I mean,
we'll be anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
And yeah, they built a $35 to $40 million team around him. I saw, so they better be damn successful.
Yeah,
otherwise it's gonna be BT.
Like, they better be successful.
It'll be a long season, Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
So we gonna see
like what we got ourselves into. All right. Shout out to Joe Edwards. Do you think the NFL sent a message for the next father-son situation like the Sanders family? Maybe to Nico's family, but it shouldn't have had to happen because remember, I go back to Jalen Hurts. Remember what he said. He was talking about what happened in that 2018 national championship game when he got pulled out, Tua got put in. He said that when he and his family got back to the hotel room, he said that he basically hugged his dad and he cried. And he cried about, I'm sure that was embarrassing, but the way he held his composure. But he said he asked his dad, I mean, what are we going to do now? And I feel like that's the father-son dynamic that you need to see, that healthy father-son dynamic. That's kind of what guys would look up to. And so I think to Joe's point, maybe so. But how do y'all feel?
Yeah, I think it was never about the NFL. Well, maybe it was sending a message, something, but they wasn't trying to make a grandstand. With no grandstanding going on. Just the fact that this was a different situation. Everybody knows Deion Sanders, the Sanders family is different. So you don't have to, send a message to family like that because they are who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It just matter of whether or not, you as an organization are willing to deal with it. And I think that's what it was. A lot of teams was, no, I'm not dealing with that. That's why, a team like my Steelers,
You're Steelers.
It wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, imagine if your Steelers would have drafted him and then got Aaron Rodgers to come in. Oh, that would have been a hard knocks for sure. You would have had to get all this.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd have had to get all that. And another reason I believe, he kind of failed too, because they were trying to record everything. Deion Sanders Jr., he's ahead of media. So they have their own media team, and he goes and films each and every place they go, everything. And I also saw where they was not letting him come in there with the cameras in the meeting rooms. And so that's probably another reason.
Yeah, I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
All right. JM12 Green, shout out to you. Archie needs to actually prove and earn it. The dude has a great last name and came in randomly, but literally has not accomplished anything. That's true.
He hadn't played but like 3 games though.
Barely, yeah. And then when he did get in, just a few snaps.
Well,
but
no.
If I'm a betting man, I'm a bet that he's gonna be successful.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I put my money on him being successful in Texas.
Yeah.
I remember him playing like some whole games. I know because Ewers got hurt, and he did play some games. He played very well at like coming in. But he threw some picks too. Now he threw some ducks out there. He's not going to be a perfect quarterback. He's going to have his ups and downs. But I think he's going to be all right.
Yeah, he's going to be. Yeah, he'll be good. And he played. And wasn't that the Georgia game when Sarkisian pulled Ewers and? Yeah, I thought so. But he didn't do that well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think that's why people were trying to get Ewers out of there because he was mucking it up, and he kind of pretty much say we will Arch now. We will Arch.
Yeah.
They ran yours out of time. What?
Okay. Shout out to Ephraim. Steelers a fool waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Call it like
He's
it is.
saying him but a sentence, baby. We already know it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if he don't come? Damn, what if he don't come? What are y'all gonna do?
He might not.
We might just get Big Ben back. They about the same age.
Oh, Mason Rudolph show.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph show.
Wow.
All right. Does Seattle have a good OC to teach Milroe to be? I was wondering when we got Grubb, did they announce who the new OC is?
Clint Kubiak.
Greg Kubiak's son. Gary Kubiak. Gary, what's his name? I can't remember.
Gary Kubiak.
Gary Kubiak, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, because we mentioned Scott Huff still being the O-line coach for the Seahawks, and then of course the award that he basically won at Washington for best O-line. Did it seem like in the draft? Did it seem like the Seahawks were drafting guys? Like, did it seem strategic in a way, like they were trying to build around protecting the quarterback? Like, how did that seem to y'all? What did you see?
The Seahawks first round pick. They used the first round pick on the best guard in the draft. His name is Gray Zabel. He's from North Dakota State. He was the best player at Senior Bowl practice. He won an award, the MVP of Senior Bowl practice. I was there. I saw him. He's great. He's a plug and play guy. So they used that first round pick on offensive line. They're definitely building that offensive line up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they drafted what's our guy?
Oops.
Robbie Oops. Yes.
And that was strategic because remember because some people were questioning, well, how to some degree would someone get Robbie before CJ? Well, I remember Robbie saying that he prefers to block. And he did. And he was, he still had big plays, even from a reception perspective. But Dan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, they tell me they're safe. That tells me they're shaping the offense for Milroe.
So they knew.
Guess what? They drafted him as a fullback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at Seahawks. Okay. Trying to do a little something. All right.
Team to watch this year. I'm not saying they're gonna go to the playoffs, but they're a team to watch for sure.
Yeah, interesting. All right. I think we had a couple more. Do you think Ruggs will get another chance in the NFL when he gets out in 2026? I think he will.
Great question.
I think he will. I don't think all is lost. I think he was accountable. I think, of course, what he did was, wrong, 100%. But I think that he owned up to it. He took responsibility for it. He's doing the time and, all the consequences. And I honestly believe that he should get another chance. And what I think he should do, he should be strategic with it. He needs to start a foundation and he needs to create something to where he uses that adversity and what he went through in a sense. And then also, with what he calls, use that to bring awareness to the matter, because you see different guys. I think one of was it Texas or some incoming freshman, I want to say it was a Texas player, perhaps freshman,
Texas Tech.
So one of these schools where just a couple of days ago they had a freshman who got pulled over for DWI, and so it's just kind of bringing that awareness, especially coming from someone like Henry Ruggs. They'll respect that from him. So how do y'all feel?
Yeah. So this hits home because I'm from Montgomery. Henry Ruggs is from Montgomery, grew up here. I've met his family, several members of his family, and he's surrounded by, they love him. You know what I'm saying? Like, his brother also played at Ole Miss, and his brother has been, he had his issues as well. But I really root for this kid. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys watched the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark. They had Josh Jacobs on, and he was talking about that he was supposed to go with Ruggs that night because, they were teammates with the Raiders. Josh Jacobs was supposed to go with him, but he didn't go. And he regrets it to this day because if he would have went, this would have never happened. Never happened. So, good kid, bad choice. And the situation happened. I think he gets another chance. And, like Dan, like you mentioned about him starting a foundation and whatnot, do something good for that. And you can't be picky where you go. You have to go with the team that gives you that opportunity, and you have to make the best of that opportunity. And Josh Jacobs also said that he's training, he's working out, and he's going to be ready to go once he gets released.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Have a friend in high school that died in a car accident as well. Yeah. So this two situations that he is fortunate enough to be able to learn from. So you don't want to keep repeating the same behavior. So I don't know. So I'm not gonna knock anyone getting another chance, because that's what Coach Saban always used to preach, giving guys a second chance. But this time, guy, you fall flat, nobody's gonna feel sorry for you. You got to make the most of it. So
yeah, but when the best thing to do in a situation like this would be to give him another chance, right? Not to take anything away from the woman who was killed in that incident, because that was horrific and it shouldn't have happened. And we send our condolences to her family. But I feel like if you want to send a message, even think about what recently happened to Kyron Lacey, right? If you want to send a message to just college football in and of itself, to let guys know, like, hey, even if you mess up, because we're all human, it's not over. You know what I mean? Like Henry Ruggs, who's to say that he didn't think about, doing the same thing that Kyron Lacey did? He probably did consider that. But the fact that he stood the course and he owned up to what he did, I feel like, if anything, the right thing what I would do if I'm an owner of an NFL team, I'm like, no, you know what? We're going to show that, yeah, there is another chance, but you have to own up to what you did, and then don't feel entitled. But I think that'll probably be the best thing that could happen. In this situation.
I don't know if you guys remember Dante Stallworth. He was a wide receiver, played for the Patriots. Yeah. He killed somebody in an automobile accident, a pedestrian, and he wound up playing again. Mm-hmm. He wound up playing again after he got released. Yes.
Leonard Little as well. Mm-hmm. Played with the Rams, I believe. Yeah.
So he can definitely come back, and he's young. Like 26.
Yeah. All right. And then shout out to Latoya. Do y'all think special teams will hurt or help us this year? Man, I mean, I feel like
better play. Yeah, we definitely have to get better play, because we took a step back this year in special teams. So hopefully, Latoya, they can help us. But that's a point of concern, this offseason.
Yeah. I'm 50-50 on it, man. 50-50 on the kicking game. I mean, even the punting game. We lost Burner, one of our best punters. I don't know. I mean, we can get some guys out there who can return some punts, get some good field position. It's going to be tricky. I don't know. I'm 50-50 on it. I can't, I hope so. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, I was thinking about the punt returns, because it just seems like last year and the year before, we were always just trading the guys out like little chess pieces, and I'm like, wait a minute, I mean, you never forming any type of rhythm back there, because you're always trying to plug and play.
Catching the ball first, catching the ball.
Yeah, you're right. But that was a good question. All right, shout out to Van Edwards. Better question, Dan. Will the NFL give me a chance? I'm trying to get a yacht.
Well, we Spencer stood us up tonight, but that would have been a question you could have asked Spencer.
You don't want, well, yeah. All right.
Van, a chance to do what, Van? Play?
He could be a holder on special team.
All right, those are some good questions. All right. Let's see, make sure we didn't miss it. Okay, I saw a question from Ronald. All right. Well, shout out to everyone who was in the chat. This was a really good show. And y'all want to pop your socials and any other shows? Dan, I'll start with you on this one. Any other shows that you want to mention, and then any social media?
Yes. Tuesday nights, the final whistle, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, right here every Wednesday night, the Crimson Dynasty. I'll probably be looking to do more things on the Bama Standard Network, so y'all stay tuned. But you can follow me on social media at the Final Whistle Dan, on Instagram, Dan James 4.
What is that? above your left shoulder. Is that like a helmet or something?
Yes. Oh yeah, that's the helmet. Let me see. Yeah.
What number are you? Number 1?
Number 1. What did it take to be number 1? Yeah, I got the helmet. You know, since we won so many championships, I took it. You know, I took it out the Brand Museum. I ain't think anybody would notice.
Hey, we just gotta we gotta continue to link and let all the know that we still number 1. We still the same.
Nobody is number 1.
Actually, Miss Olivia noticed it was missing, and she wants to talk to you.
Yeah. So she gonna reserve you a seat in front of a parking spot in front of the museum, so it ain't no excuses to bring that back. All right, JV. Any other shows and any social media?
Yes, y'all can follow me, young_ENT_ on Twitter, Sports Talk JB on Instagram, and Sports Talking with JB on YouTube. Go subscribe to the channel. Also, Sunday night, Talking Bama, me, JT, Herb, Stephen M. Smith, Sundays, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Also here on Wednesdays, Crimson Dynasty with my great cast right here. 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and that's it.
All right, and then I'll be laughing all the time, so don't worry. But you can catch me here every Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Crimson Dynasty. If we ever have to, change up the schedule, we let y'all know in advance. And and then you can find me on X at official C'Chi, and then you can find me on Instagram at beauty_of_intelligence. And that'll do it for us. We may have a special guest on next week, so be sure to tune in. Like I said, hit that notification bell so you're notified in advance, but we may have a special guest on, so be sure to catch us next week. And without further ado, roll tide roll. Shout out to Whitwell Sports.
Don't give a cliffhanger like that, C'Chi. So don't leave a little cliffhanger like that.
I mean, just in case something changes, because I would hate to get people's expectations up, and then I don't know. I mean, feel free if you want to. This is
a Hall of Famer.
I know, but we attempted to get him on before.
You got to tune in next week to see.
I know. I don't know. I want to get
cliffhanger. We got a special guest for y'all.
Yeah. I mean, all I'm saying is that he's a busy guy. Hall of Famer. We tried to get him on not too long ago. He was busy, so I just don't want to throw it out there. And then
he reached out. He said, "Let me know how I can help out Crimson Dynasty."
Okay, well, you can sure.
Y'all stay tuned now. Y'all tune in next week.
We don't want no excuses.
No excuses. No.
Even y'all haters, because like we tell y'all, we the standard. Y'all know what time it is. We got the.
Don't get me started. Florida fans, you probably don't want to tune in.
Y'all should tune in. Make sure you tune in, Florida. Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it. Well, roll tide, roll, and y'all be safe and be blessed.
Roll Tide.